This is Syd Mead. You probably don't recognize him by his face or maybe even by his name, but I can be sure that you know his work. This week on Pixel Report, we're taking a look at how Syd Mead has changed the way we view the future in movies and, of course, video games. To start, Syd attended the what's now called Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. It's here where he got in touch with the drawing style that he's grown and evolved into all the work that he has made to this day, and that style to him is visual futurism. Now, futurism comes in all different flavors, such as architectural, artistic, musical, but this style originated around the early 1900s and largely was in response to Cubism, which was found to be more static, where futurism focused on the feeling of movement within the arts. In the early years, futurists like Arthur Reid-Bow, Antonio Sant'Elia, and Umberto Boccioni looked towards the future and imagined a tomorrow that no one saw coming. This led to some truly spectacular worlds, even if none of the predictions really came true, at least not yet. You see, what made this artistic style so unique was the combination of their focus on movement and not shying away from the impact of technical and mechanical advancements. These ideas were especially taken to heart when it came to land, air, and sea transportation, quite literally sometimes needing the artist to reach for the stars in their designs of the future. Most importantly, it was meant to be a very tangible style with texture, all grounded in a world just past our horizon. After graduating, Syd Mead took jobs illustrating for companies such as the Ford Motor Company and US Steel. Soon, however, his work and the work of others like him began to catch the eye of people outside the art and design world as they found their way into the medium of film. Starting slow with his design movie debut on Star Trek: The Motion Picture, he got a taste for the influence that he could have on film and was ready for more. One of his next and arguably most impactful jobs was when he was brought on to design vehicles for an upcoming movie called Blade Runner. While creating his designs, he struggled to create cars, taxis, or whatever else he needed without context, so he gave them context. It was dark and gritty and dirty and everything the movie needed. By doing this, he impressed those in charge and quite literally drew himself into designing almost the whole movie's world. The noir style that he brought to the screen with the help of Ridley Scott and other talented artists has since cemented itself in our minds as a memorable world. No longer was our future shiny and chrome and clean, it was dark, dirty, and worn, but most importantly, it was real. He continued his work in the film industry, creating iconic locations like the USS Sulaco in James Cameron's Aliens, the original Tron designs, and an arguably memorable Elysium with Neil Blomkamp, which I personally remembered because it was the closest we really ever got to a certain circular space station on the big screen. But his style could not be contained by just film or canvas, as it eventually made its transition into video games, kind of. After working on a couple smaller projects by assisting with visual designs in video games, he eventually got to expand on his own creation with Aliens during the production of Aliens: Colonial Marines. Despite its shortcomings due to AI and other technical issues, it wasn't brought down for a lack of style, which was provided by Syd himself. During this first major contribution to the video game industry, he showed his excitement and interest in the potential the medium has, saying in an interview with Hollywood Reporter, "Working with games now, it's not a limitation of technique, it's a limitation of ideas, the demographics it's aimed at, the quality of gameplay, the scripting, runtime, and all that." Or in other words, the techniques of making games has been more or less developed. It's the creativity, the quality of gameplay, and scripting that is the next big hurdle for the industry. Admittedly, his work directly in video games is quite restricted, but there's no argument the impact that he has had on how we visualize the future in our virtual worlds. Take, for example, the upcoming 2D adventure game The Last Night by developer Odd Tales that clearly draws from the neon and pollution-engulfed cities of Blade Runner. And I don't believe that it's a stretch to pick up on some remnants of Syd's classical Blade Runner in the upcoming Cyberpunk 2077 made by CD Projekt Red, which also shares influences from anime as well as The Long Tomorrow, a book illustrated by Mobius in 1976 that Blade Runner also took inspiration from. However, it was not just the darker worlds like aliens in Blade Runner that were brought to video games. The clean lines and sweeping curves of his and other futurists' works have become powerful influences on iconic game series like Mass Effect and Halo. I particularly found Mass Effect to be the closest we've come to exploring the vast city vistas of Syd Mead's earlier work. Everything from the Citadel to the Normandy, even the Mako, look like they are directly taken out of Syd's renderings. There's no denying the impact that Syd Mead has had on how we visualize the future. I believe that his work is especially important in the video game industry because the medium allows us to not just experience a world passively, but be part of it. The interactive potential that games have to explore worlds that are both amazing and terrifying has been one of the draws of video games since their inception. We play video games to explore and be part of things that we could not experience anywhere else. So when someone with talent and vision puts pen to paper and creates what could be our tomorrow, there's reason to look closer at the world they create, because it just might be the next playground for our virtual adventures. Either way, whatever tomorrow has in store for us, I'm excited to see what types of games we might get that explore Syd Mead's vision of what comes next. His futurist vision. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite futuristic world in video games has been and why. Until next week, this has been Devin J, and this is Pixel Report.